Fitting the rest of the parts and completing the job, part 31. This video shows the fitting of various parts to the oak plinths, and because the templates were accurate, the job was successful. Rather than use an air gap as originally planned, I decided to use heat insulation, which gives a bit more support for the boiler mounting plate. As you can see in this clip, the piece of heat insulation is just inside the holes in the plate, because I thought if I cut it full length it may look a bit messy around the bolt holes. I think it looks okay. This is the 10H steam plant, and all I need now is a suitable boiler. I'm going to use a 501 boiler, which should be perfectly adequate for this small engine. And here I'm placing the first of the 501 boilers in position on the burner plate. You may notice on this boiler one of the feet is broken. This is not a problem. I'm going to leave it just as it is because it was like that as I received the original plant. I'll put it down to patina. For fixing the burner plates and boilers to the baseboards, I'm going to use 3/4 inch long cheese head 4BA bolts, or machine screws, or whatever you want to call them. I'm using steel bolts on the boiler for a bit more strength. For the other parts I will still be using 4BA cheese head 3/4 inch long bolts, but these will be brass for holding things like the water tanks and condensers. In this clip I'm tightening up the union nut that holds the feed water pipe to the check valve, and as always I use my trusty 4-inch Barco spanner, also known as a 100mm Barco spanner. The boiler is now mounted to the base, and it's time to do the same with all the ancillary equipment, and as I've just mentioned, here you see me using brass cheesehead bolts. No washers are required for these. I just think it looks neater this way. Why am I using brass? Well, there's quite a lot of water around a water tank, and of course brass doesn't go rusty, unlike the bolts holding the boiler down, which really could do with a dab of paint. A quick tip, it's not really a top tip, it's a common sense tip. When using a normal screwdriver on slot-headed screws, always make sure that the screwdriver blade is in the centre. If it slips, it will mark the brass very easily. Here I'm connecting the pipe from the condenser to the chimney. Here's a quick shot of the piping, and you may be wondering why there is a U-bend in the exhaust pipe. The reason for that is because the exhaust pipe was the one that was originally fitted to the engine, and I just modified it. And I think it looks quite neat. In this clip, applying plenty of pressure to the screwdriver, making sure it's in the centre of the cheesehead bolts. These small 4BA machine screws cut perfect threads into the 1/8 inch diameter holes in the oak plinths. Notice that I don't tighten the bolts up until I've got them all in place. And why is this? Well, it's the way of things when you're dealing with mechanical things that are held together with fixings. There was a lot of silver soldering to do with the piping for these plants, and it took a long time. And because of the time scale owing to my hospital appointment, I couldn't put them in the acid bath overnight, so I cleaned the piping manually using Scotch-Brite and the polishing spindle. This template board is for the Stuart Victoria, and here I'm drilling the holes through the template into the oak plinth. This steam plant was a little bit more difficult to manufacture. It has a very neat square water tank on 4 legs, and the holes had to be in the right place for this. After drilling all of the 1/8 inch diameter holes, I then turned to the 3/16 inch diameter holes, which are required so that 4 wood screws can hold the big block of mahogany that the engine is mounted on tightly to the oak plinth. The fact that the drill bit still has the piece of rubber tubing on it has nothing to do with this operation. I'm just cleaning up the underside of all of the holes so there are no burrs. This next part was difficult. The Stuart Victoria, complete with its water pump and piping, is screwed to a mahogany block. This in turn needs to be screwed to the plinth, and I enlisted some help to allow me to do it. Time for the celebration. This, by the way, or bits of this, is my first wife Fran holding the part in place while I show the camera that the screws line up underneath. and it was well worth doing this, which was to cut the old baseboard up and mark the holes from that. It worked. I'm actually surprised. Thank you, friend. Done. This clip was taken just before the customer arrived. Here are the steam plants on the table, and if you look carefully you'll see that the steam pipe from the 504 boiler to the inlet of the Victoria is missing. Immediately after filming this particular clip, I went up to the workshop and silver soldered the union cones onto the steam pipe. And while I was doing this, the customer arrived. When I went back down to the house, the steam pipe in my hand was still warm. I bolted it in position and the job is completed. The next and final episode in this series will feature lots of before and after photographs of the steam plants. It's easy to forget just how bad they were when they arrived in my workshop. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.